Hello and welcome. My name is Jonathan Maddock. I'm a trainer here at Redtail Technology, and we're going to be doing week 2 of Thrive in 5, Prospecting in Redtail. It's a 5-part series that we're going to be talking about none other than prospecting. So if you joined us last week, or if you missed us last week, you'll know that we went ahead and talked about categorizing our contacts and creating our database lists. And so today we're going to be looking at how to automate that prospecting process. So everybody's going to have their own special sauce. Everybody's going to be, got their own unique feel for their organization. But today I'm just want to give you an example of using broadcast emails, workflows, and automations, and in hopes that we can go ahead and make that process for you just a little bit simpler and you maybe streamline it a bit. So to get started, first thing I want to kind of talk about is leads, right? Leads are going to be where we're going to start and where we're going to get our contact information, new client contact information. But depending on how you're getting leads, we may not describe them or we may not have a similar definition. And I challenge all of you within your organization to go ahead and define what a lead is, what a prospect is, and what an active client is. Active client's pretty easy, right? We know that they're going to go ahead and be somebody who's paying us or somebody who already is providing, we're providing services to them. Whereas a lead and prospect could be different based off of organization. The definition I like is I think of a lead as a phone number. I think of a phone number with no face. Maybe I have a name and a phone number, and if I'm lucky, maybe an email address. Whereas a prospect is that same bit of information, but I've already had a warm introduction or I've already talked to the client. So now they're more becoming a prospect. I need to validate whether or not they're going to become an active client. So again, I challenge you to define all of those within your organization. Now, where are we getting leads or where are we getting prospects? Obviously, we could go ahead and do, internet marketing or website leads. Maybe we're getting them from referrals, or maybe we're doing seminars. And if we're really lucky, maybe our broker dealer is providing this to them. That's probably pretty rare, but if we're really lucky, that's probably the case. But however that we're getting them, we're all going to be really trying to classify those leads or prospects. And that's why we had talked so deeply last week about classifying, using statuses, using categories, using sources, all of that. So then we can go ahead and say, great, we have this contact record, we have this lead, we have this prospect. Now, what are we going to do with it? So today we're going to be talking about building a workflow for it. And what I really wanted to focus here is the 7 touches. If anybody knows anything about marketing, there's a theory that you touch somebody 7 times, or it takes 7 times for them to get a response. Sometimes it's easier, and depending on how we got that lead or that prospect, it may be a warmer introduction. And there's also variations of this. I've heard, you need less touches, or maybe you need more touches before you finally get a hold of them and get an answer of whether or not they want to do business with you, or they're in need of your services. So today we built out or if you've taken a look at the prospecting cadence workflow example, you'll see that we've gone ahead and created a workflow for touching our leads 7 times. So if we go ahead and take a look at it, we have a phone call, we have another phone call followed up with an email, and then we have another phone call, a second email, a 4th phone call, and then finally we're going to leave them with an email in hopes that we're going to set up a client meeting. So with all of that being said, let's take a look at what we need to do to kind of create a process, right? So if we get a lead, we get a prospect, we're going to immediately put them into the CRM. We're going to go ahead and capture that information. We're going to take the information, whether it's from maybe we have a list that we purchased, or maybe we have a whole list that comes from our website or our marketing automation, something like that. So we're going to go ahead and take those, and we're going to go and put them into CRM with a certain classification. So last week, I think we took a look at Richie Rich. And so we'll go ahead and jump back into that contact just to see kind of where he's at and what type of status he had. So you'll see here we had under the contact details, we had a prospect and he was a hot prospect. Great. But today we're going to take it a step further, and when we add them in here, what do we do? So first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at broadcast emails. So we're going to have a workflow, we're going to call them, and we're going to email them. Well, if I don't want to email outside of the CRM and I want to capture all of those emails for history, I can use broadcast email to do that. So we're going to go ahead and move up to the top right-hand corner. We're going to go into manage our account, and we're going to go into email templates. Now, if you were following along with the cadence of our prospecting cadence for the workflow example, you'll see that we had 3 emails. So what we're going to first want to do is we're going to want to go ahead and create an email template for each 3 of those emails. So we may have something, so if we go back actually, you'll see that the first email was more of an introductory email. We're going to give them 2 phone calls, and then we're going to follow up with an introduction. So maybe something like, hi, this is who I am, these are the services I provide, please let me know if you're interested. Great. The next email is going to be more of a value proposition, right? We're now 5 touches in. We haven't been able to get in contact with them. So let's go ahead and shoot them another email about value proposition. What does my firm provide to them that other firms do not? Or what is my niche that separates me from other advisors? So we'll go ahead and do a value proposition. And the last one is more of a contact information. Here's my contact information. Reach out to me when you have a need. I've touched it to 7 times. You're really not worth my time anymore. So let's just let you kind of sit there cold, and we'll maybe cultivate you in a couple more months. Maybe we'll go back into our cold leads. So you'll see here I've already built out those 3 emails. If you have questions about how to do that, there's plenty of videos out there that will provide you information on how to go about this. But if we go ahead and click into it, you'll see that I've gone ahead and named it. I have a subject, and I have some tags in here. So I'm going to pull the first and last name, and then I'm going to address them. This is my last email, so I'm just saying, hey, we're unable to connect this week. Please let me know if you have any financial needs. I'm here to help you out. And again, I want to reiterate that this may not always work, or this may not always be applicable to how you receive leads. So if you're getting more of a warm lead, or maybe it's a referral or something like that, maybe we can limit those touches to maybe 3 or 4, right? Maybe we're only sending 1 email and we're making 2 or 3 phone calls, and then we're good to go, right? Whereas if it's more of a cold lead, we're getting it from we don't know who it is. Maybe it's just a marketing automation. They've sent in a name, an email, a phone number, and that's all. That's it. Now we can go ahead and have those 7 touches, because we're going to have to cultivate that a little bit more. We're going to have to heat it up and get it to a hot lead. So from there, from the emails, we've gone ahead and created these emails. Now let's go ahead and create the workflow. So if we go into the top right-hand corner, we're going to click our name. We're going to go to manage your account. We're going to then go into workflow templates. And if we use the example that we've provided to us, we have, pretty much it's pretty self-explanatory. We're going to make a couple phone calls. We're going to make a couple emails. And again, we're going to hopes that we're going to land a client meeting. But you also see that we have outcomes. So when we go ahead and create that, we're going to create these outcomes that each step, each call, or each touch that we make, we can go ahead and give an outcome. If we're lucky, we call one time. Client says, or prospect says, absolutely, I'm interested. Go ahead and let's schedule a meeting. Great. If that happens, we're going to jump all the way down to the client meeting. We're going to go ahead and set that client meeting, and then we're going to go from there. But we can also do that along the way. Any touch along the way that we feel, yes, we finally have gotten a hold of them, and they're interested, we can then skip all the remaining touches, and we can go right down to the client meeting. So let's go ahead and build that out. Just kind of show you a quick couple steps on how we're going to build the workflow. So we're going to go ahead and click the new button on the top right-hand corner, and we're just going to call it, Thrive in 5 prospecting. We're not going to give it an owner, but we are going to leave the status under construction as we build it. In the category, we're going to put, I think prospecting is a pretty good category. So we're going to go ahead and put prospecting as the category. Now, this due date right here it's going to say what is going to be the target date after we create it. So if you'll see on our example, we don't have any target dates, so target dates may not be used. However, if we wanted to go ahead and use target dates, we could select here as a target date being the day we create it. So the day that the workflow is initiated, that's going to be the target date. And then our due dates after that are going to follow and correspond with that original date that we started it. So maybe we're going to do a cadence as, we're going to call the first day, we're going to wait 2 days, we're going to call again, and then we're going to wait 1 day, we're going to email them, and so on and so forth. We're going to spread it out over maybe a 14-day period. We can go ahead and set this as 0 days after creation date. So we're saying that right as we create it, that's going to be the target date. So let's go ahead and create that workflow. Just like any other workflow that we create from a template, it's going to sit all the way down at the very bottom until we refresh. So we're going to go ahead and click into it. And then really what we're going to do is we're just going to build it out. So we have 8 steps, right? We have, looks like 4 phone calls, 3 emails, and 1 client meeting. So we can just build out the skeleton. So we're going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 steps. Then in each one of those, they have tasks. So we have 1 task per step. That's pretty simple. So we'll just go ahead and add a task, add a task, add a task, all the way down till each step has a task. And it looks like we need a couple more steps. So we'll go ahead and do that. So now we have 8 steps. We have the last one, it looked like it had 2 tasks. So we want to make sure that we're going to schedule the meeting, and then also we're going to go ahead and at the end of this workflow, maybe we're going to trigger our onboarding workflow. So if the client's going to come in, we're going to schedule that. And maybe we have a process or a workflow for setting up a client meeting. So we're going to go ahead and leave an extra task there. So then from there, we're just going to click these action icons, any one of these. And if you're on the mobile app or you're on the mobile version, you can go ahead and these are always clickable. So we're going to edit the step. And what is the first step called? First step is phone call number 1. And we're going to make the sales introduction call. So we're going to go ahead and say phone call number 1. Great. And like I said, for our target date, we're going to go ahead and say it's 0 days. As soon as this triggers, we want to immediately call. So we're going to call on the same day. So we're going to go ahead and say 0 days after target date. It could go before or after, it doesn't matter. It just knows that it's 0 days. So it's going to be on that day. We can even get some description if we're going to give this to like maybe an SDR or somebody like that is going to be making the calls. And we just want to say, set it and forget it. This are your instructions. Go ahead and do it. So we can say make introduction. Sales call. Well, typing is difficult this morning. So make introduction to sales call. So we're going to update that step. So you'll see then we can go ahead and edit the task. It's essentially going to be the same thing. So we're going to say make phone call number 1. And then we're not going to assign it to somebody, or if we wanted to, we could assign it to a specific user. Maybe the client services team is the team that goes ahead and calls out, or maybe it's a specific user in our database that does all of our outbound demand generation calls. So we can go ahead and select either one. For this example, we're not going to have anybody. We're not going to assign it to anybody. So we're going to update the task. So now we have make the phone call. Really, we're just going to keep doing the same thing. Phone call number 2. And we're going to say, so we said 0 days. Whereas if we wanted to stretch this out, so we make a phone call on Monday, we don't get to them. Great. How long do we want to wait before we call them again? 2 days? 1 day? This example, let's do 2 days. We're going to say 2 days after target date. Then we can go ahead and update that step. So now it's going to be 2 days after. We can go ahead and create the task for it. So I'm going to say make phone call number 2. Not going to update anybody. We're going to go ahead and do that. So again, just moving down the line. I think the next one is what, an email. We're going to say an email. So if we tried 2 phone calls, maybe email is a better medium to get them at. So we're going to go ahead and say email number 2. And we're going to say, so if we're call on a Monday, we call them again on a Wednesday. Now let's go ahead and email them. Let's do 3 days after, because we're going to call them. We didn't get them. We're going to immediately follow up the next day with an email. So let's say 3 days after target date. So if we go ahead and update this, you'll see that we have one day, Monday, we have Wednesday, and then we have Thursday. We're going to be touching them. Edit the task. Going to go ahead and say email send email number 2. We're going to update that. Now, I could go on all day and we could go ahead and build this out, but there's no real need for that because it's really troublesome, not troublesome, but it's really wash and repeat, and there's no real need to do that. What I want to show you here is how to add outcomes, because what we're going to do is we're going to add 3 outcomes really per touch. So we're going to have an outcome for client not interested, right? We call them, even though they filled out or however we got their lead, they say, you know what? I went with somebody else, or, you know, you guys really aren't a fit for me, so no thank you, I appreciate it. So client not interested. There's no need to leave the workflow open, so we're going to complete the workflow. Or the next thing is client says, absolutely, you guys are great. I would love to work with you. Perfect. Let's go ahead and move forward. We're going to go ahead and drop all the way down to the last step, and that's going to be set the client meeting. Or what's going to happen is you leave a voicemail. That's the first touch. You're going to move on to the next touch, and that's going to be phone call number 2. So really what we're going to be doing is we're just going to be building out those outcomes. 3 outcomes. We're going to have a way to go forward, which would be, what did we say it was? We said client not interested, client is interested. So we'll go ahead and say client is interested in moving forward. And we're going to go ahead and it's going to be, we're going to go down to step number 8. Even though, although we didn't describe it fully, we're going to go ahead and do the next step would be the last step. Create that outcome. We can go ahead and add another outcome, and that is going to be client not interested. We're going to go ahead and complete the workflow. And then the last one is going to be left client a voicemail, and we're going to go ahead and move on to phone call number 2. So we're going to go ahead and create that. So what you'll see here is now we can just go through, we can just quickly take a look at our example, and we're just data entry. This is just moving everything over, we're creating it, and we may be even modifying it to fit our business. But when we're done, we're going to have something that looks like this. We have a full, completed Thrive in 5 prospecting workflow. So we have our phone call number 1, 2, our email number 1, and it's all in there. You see that I have these days set. I have 2 days, 3 days. So what it's going to say is I want the day that I start it, it's going to trigger, and this whole thing is only going to take me 10 business days to complete. So, you know, if I call on a Monday, I know that by next week I'm either going to have them as a prospect or they're going to be in the cold lead bucket. Now, one thing to note about days here is it's going to be not off of business days. It's going to be off of weekdays and weekends. So there are going to be times where your 3rd touch or your 4th touch is going to fall on a Saturday. But it's okay, because if we go back into the Today page and we're actively watching our workflows anyways, because that's what we're doing if we're using workflows, we're going to always be looking at our assigned workflow tasks. We can go ahead and click into our workflow tasks, and anything that is past due is just going to show up right here as under past due. So then we know on that Monday, we may be giving, you know, an extra 2 or 3 calls to people because their 2nd touch was on a Saturday. Nothing wrong with that. We'll just know that we need to go ahead and touch them on that Monday. Then the cadence will continue along. So great. We have an awesome workflow. We've got emails already set up. We're ready to prospect. Now, the last thing that I want to do, and probably the most important to creating that automation part of this, is going to be setting up an automation. And I think it's probably one of the most advanced features that we have, because it really is one of those set it and forget it. So we're going to go up to the top right-hand corner. We're going to go to Manage Your Account, and we're going to go into Automation Templates under the Manage Templates section. So we're going to click into this. And essentially what we want to automate is we want to say, when we add a new client and they meet this criteria, maybe it's a prospecting status with a hot category and the source was internet lead and they're an actual individual and not a business. If they meet all that criteria, I want the Redtail CRM to trigger my prospecting workflow, and I wanted to attach it to that workflow, to that contact. So then anybody who is going to be making outbound calls knows that they need to go ahead and start doing the 7-touch process with that prospect. So what we're going to do is we're going to go move up to the top right-hand corner. We're going to hit Add. we're going to create a new automation. So for this one, I'm going to say Thrive in 5 prospecting automation. And the trigger event is going to be, in this case, I want it to happen as soon as I add a contact. So when I add a new contact into my database, whether it be a lead or a prospect, I want it to trigger this workflow. So we're going to say on this event, which is contact added, we want to do this action. When you're dealing with automations, it deals more of a if-then statement. If this, then this happens. So we're saying when we add a new contact, we want to link a workflow from template. And the workflow that we want to link is going to be the Thrive in 5 prospecting workflow, WF. So we're going to create, we're going to continue on and we're going to say if, and now we're going to add our conditions. So we're going to say if all conditions are true. We can also say if any conditions are true. So this is more of a widened search. We're going to say if you land in this bucket, sure, why not? You get the workflow. But in this one, we're going to say if this and this and this are true, then we're going to go ahead and trigger that workflow. So new condition. First one we're going to do is we're going to do status, or actually we're going to do type. So we want it to equal to, and this is going to be the very basic information when we create a contact. So we can either have it as individual, a business, an association, a trust, or a union. In this case, we want it to be an individual because we want to know that they're an actual contact. So we're going to go ahead and add that condition, and then we're going to automatically add another one. So let's go ahead and take a look at status. In this case, we want it to say equals active client wouldn't really be right. So let's go ahead and put it at prospect. So if they're a prospect in our CRM, we want it to trigger this. Add that. Again, we're going to go to category and we're going to say equals to, and I want it to be a hot prospect. We want somebody who's going to be cooking, somebody who has a good chance of starting to pay us some money. So we're going to add that condition. Next one is going to be source. I want to know where my leads are coming from. And also this is really great because if we're using multiple sources, whether it be a referral, whether it be an internet lead, maybe our DV is giving us something, whatever it may be, as I was mentioning earlier, is we may have different workflows for each one of those lead types or each one of those prospect types. So how we're getting a referral, we may reach out to them differently because it's a lot warmer of a conversation. Hey, this is, I got your contact information from Dave. Dave said you'd be interested, let's talk. Great. That's a lot easier to do. And it's going to be less steps to connect with them. So our touches are going to be lower. So we may have multiple workflows for each different type of source. So for this one, we're going to say marketing or a website lead. We want it to say when a contact source is website lead, we want to add that condition. So the last thing, that's pretty much it. We have 4 conditions that are going to trigger this workflow to that prospect. So we're going to go ahead and close out of that. You'll see that we have type, status, category, and source, and they are going to be an individual, a prospect, a hot lead, hot is the category, and then we have website lead. So we're going to go ahead and create that automation. And when we're done, it's going to sit on our list. And now we have some, our automations are done. So now I want to show you when we add in, when we add in a prospect, what does it look like? We've done all this work now. What is it actually going to do? So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and remove this because I already have it available. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So now I have our prospecting. So let's go ahead and create a new contact. And so last week we used Richie Rich. Today I want to use Scrooge McDuck because he's rich. He's got a bunch of money. We don't know him all that well, but he reached out to us and maybe he wants some of our services. So we're going to go create a new contact and we're going to go to individual. We're going to select individual. We know his name, Scrooge. His last name is McDuck. And if we had any other information, we can certainly put that in. But since it's coming from more of a lead and a prospect, we probably only have maybe a phone number. So I'm going to say 1-800. We're going to go 206-5030 because that's his phone number. We can mark it as primary if needed. And we're going to put in his email. So we're going to say Scrooge.mcduck at, I think it's ducktails.com. So we're going to go ahead and mark that as primary as well. Now we have an email address. Now, the most important thing when trying to trigger that workflow through the automation is making sure that our statuses, our categories, our source is all set up correctly. So we went ahead and said if the status is prospect, if the category is hot, and the source was website lead, it should automatically trigger. So we're going to go ahead and save this contact. And as soon as I save this contact, what you're going to see is we're going to automatically have, oh, email type can't be blank. Oops, excuse me. So we're going to go ahead and say it's his other, and we're going to say it's his work phone. Go ahead and save the contact. So you'll see right off the bat, immediately we just started, we have 2 active workflows. So that means that there's some criteria on here that triggered 2 workflows. So let's go ahead and click into it and see what they are. Oh, perfect. New contact referral. So anytime we add a contact, we already had an automation in there to trigger based off of some sort of criteria that we created. And we also have our Thrive and 5 prospecting workflow. So now we can go ahead, anybody who's creating this contact, they've put them in there. Now they can click into the workflow and then go ahead and see, great, Jeremy is already been assigned to go ahead and make this phone call number 1, and it's due today. So he needs to get on that. So that right there is pretty much the whole flow of how you can use broadcast emails, workflows, and automations to streamline your prospecting process. But we have to make sure that we're building off of statuses, categories, and sources. If we do all of that correctly, we can really streamline that process and make it easier. Now, the one last thing I want to show you is if we're in the contact record, so if we go back into Scrooge McDuck, and we want to go ahead and take a look, where is he at within that process? We can scroll all the way down to the very bottom, and you'll see that we have all of these workflow tasks that need to get done. So we have our new contact and referral trigger, so we want to go ahead and try to get all that information. That may be something that we do once we actually have the meeting. The next is the call. So we can see that within the contact record, we have to make that call. Once we're done, we can go ahead and complete it, and then the next one will trigger, or depending on the outcome, it's going to give us, the next steps as to what the workflow task is going to be. So that's pretty much it. I hope you guys got some good value today. One last thing I want to leave you with is anytime you're sending content to any one of your clients, I want you to ask yourself 3 things. Who are we sending the content to? When are we sending the content, and why are we sending the content? Because if we're going to do some sort of content, marketing, we're going to just be kind of drilling up some business based off of our expertise, and we're going to be sending some great articles. Always look at, why are we sending it? Who are we sending it to, and when are we sending it? Because there's always going to be different questions for each individual prospect. So I'm going to leave you with that. I hope that you all got some good value out of today, and I can't wait for you guys to continue on with the series. Next week, we're going to be talking about, all of our hard work. We're going to be quantifying it. So, we're doing all of this stuff, but what is it turning into? So we're going to be taking a look at maybe some more report stuff, and it's really going to be great. So look out for it. But other than that, like always, if you have any additional questions, you can always reach out to us via phone at 1-800-206-5030 or by email at support@redtailtechnology.com. Thank you very much, and have a great rest of your day.